Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for the Tech Guy is provided by Cachefly. CACHEFLY.com. Hi, this is Leo Laporte, and this is my Tech Guy podcast. This show originally aired on the Premier Radio Networks on Saturday, February 7th, 2015. This is episode 1159. Enjoy. The Tech Guy podcast is brought to you by Ring Central, the business phone system that's in the cloud. Ring Central now integrates with Google for Work. Oh, that's so great. Try Ring Central with a 30-day risk-free trial. Visit ringcentral.com or call 800-543-9980 and use the promo code TWIT. And by SmartThings. SmartThings lets you monitor, control, and automate your home from wherever you are using your smartphone. Right now, SmartThings is offering the Tech Guy listeners 10% off any home security or solution kit, plus get free shipping in the U.S. when you go to smartthings.com/twit. That's smartthings.com/twit. Use the offer code TWIT at checkout. Well, hey, how are you today? Leo Laporte here, the Tech Guy. Time to talk computers, the internet, home theater, digital photography, smartphones, and all that jazz. 8888 Ask Leo is the number, 888-827-5536. That's toll-free from anywhere in the U.S. or Canada. If you're outside that area, and believe it or not, because of this thing called the internet, there are people listening from all over the world, and if you are one of them, you may also Skype out to that number. Since it's a toll-free number in the U.S., it shouldn't cost you any Skype credits. 8888 Ask Leo. 888-827-5536. Website. Oh, hello. My Mac just woke up. Website is techguylabs.com. techguylabs.com. What happened this week in the world of tech? There's kind of a holding period in these couple of weeks because in about 3 weeks, everybody in tech, not me, all the fancy people in tech go to Barcelona, Spain, for the Mobile World Congress. And it turns out now that CES, which we just, was 3 weeks ago, a month ago, doesn't do a lot of smartphones. All the smartphones, which frankly is where all the interesting stuff is happening, I think, are now in Barcelona. So all the announcements are going to be in Barcelona. So we have lots of rumors about things that will be announced. No Apple stuff, though. Don't worry about that. We already know a little bit about what Apple's going to be doing in the next few months. In fact, they told the world last week that they had a good week, by the way. They told the world last week that the Apple Watch would come out in April. Could be April 1st, could be April 30th. We don't know. Sometime in April. In fact, they said one of the Mac rumor sites says that Apple stores are putting in safes. But I'm surprised they didn't have safes before. I mean, the stuff in an Apple store is pretty valuable. But apparently, these new Apple Watches are going to be even more so. There is one model of the Apple Watch, the most expensive. They call it Edition, the Apple Watch Edition, that is solid gold. We don't know how much it'll be, but typically a watch with a gold body like that would be minimum $5,000 or $6,000. Could be more. What? Of course, remember those gold watches that are, 10 grand, 20 grand. Those are considered heirlooms, and you can hand them down. An Apple Watch will be obsolete in a year. So can Apple really get away with charging that much? Unless they have some sort of scheme to take the guts out and put new guts in a year. Maybe they do. Maybe that's part of the deal. Pay us $8,000 now, and then every year for a mere $1,000, you can replace the innards, update the watch. Technology has such a short lifespan compared to jewelry. And really, that's what those expensive watches are, is jewelry. It seems an interesting... We'll find out. We'll know. Not too long. About a month, 2 months, 3 months maybe. It's funny how people just can't wait. And then as soon as it comes out, it's like, okay, I'm bored. Now what? Now what's next? Maybe that's just the people I work with. Probably is. Good news. Well, there's interesting news. I don't know. Is this good news? Silk Road, the guy who was accused of founding the Silk Road, which was a secret kind of part of the internet on the dark net, place where you could buy illegal stuff like drugs and guns. They arrested a guy named Ross Ulbricht in San Francisco in the library and confiscated all his stuff and said that you, my friend, you are the guy who runs the Silk Road, a guy who goes by the name of Dread Pirate Roberts. My friend Nick Bilton, who's a New York Times writer, is actually writing a book about this because it's movie. In fact, it's already been, book's not even done. Book won't be out till the end of the year and already been optioned for a major motion picture. I think it'd be funny if Johnny Depp, who played the Dread Pirate Roberts in the Pirates of the Caribbean movie, then wasn't he Dread Pirate? I think he was. No? Huh? Come in here and tell me.
The movie's Princess Bride.
Princess Bride. Never mind. So Johnny Depp shouldn't. That's the other pirate. I'm sorry, I confused my pirates. The Dread Pirate Roberts is in The Princess Bride. That's inconceivable. Are you sure it's not? It is. Okay. Thank goodness that my studio manager, John, is an aficionado of all things pop culture. He knows it. It's like having a Jeopardy guy, a contestant here. Who is the Dread Pirate Roberts? Anyway, that was his. Jack Sparrow was Johnny Depp. Thank you. Chat room is just as bad as you, John. No, I'm sorry. I think you're wrong. I think it's Jack Sparrow. I think you should check and see what it says in IMDb because I believe it's Jack Sparrow. Anyway, he was convicted. That's the story. I'm done with it now. He was convicted of drug and conspiracy charges by a federal jury. He's 30 years old. All 7 counts. It was a month-long trial. Fascinating stuff came out. For instance, he was apparently he tried to use Bitcoin, which is the imaginary cryptocurrency that they used on the Silk Road. Of course, why would they use real money? The Bitcoin. He tried to use Bitcoin to hire assassins. It's going to be a good movie. And I don't care if Johnny Depp or Carrie Elwes or whoever. I don't care who plays him. It'll be interesting. Apple is talking to TV programmers again about doing a streaming TV service. We're on the cusp of this, you know. The idea that you can get rid of your cable, you can get rid of your antenna, and you can use your internet service to watch everything you want to watch on TV. Right now, I bet half of what you watch is through Netflix or Amazon or Google or iTunes. I bet, maybe, no, yeah. I bet, certainly for me, almost everything I watch, Amazon, I watch a lot of stuff off. I'm watching The Good Wife. Just go, you know, I'm going through all whatever seasons, 6 seasons, one after the other, like cotton candy. No commercials either, right? And because I'm an Amazon Prime member, it's free. You got to love these things. So Apple apparently wants to get into this business too and is once again talking to programmers. Maybe they have a shot this time. They've been talking for years about doing this. You'd use your Apple TV. The real issue is, would you get things like the Super Bowl, the Academy Awards, the big live events? Would you get those, or do you have to watch local TV for that? You have to. How do you get that without a cable or an antenna? But maybe they'd solve that. If they do, that's it. Dish has announced at CES a new product. It's Sling TV product. And it's getting some of the way there. It has ESPN, which is probably the most popular cable channel, certainly the most expensive for the cable companies to carry. $16 per month per subscriber. That's what your cable company pays ABC Disney to carry ESPN. $16 a month. And they'll pass that along to you, of course. In fact, you can't really get ESPN by itself, can you? You have to buy it and a lot of stuff you don't want to get ESPN. So this new Sling TV will have a bunch of, it turns out, a bunch of Disney channels. They made, it seems like one deal. They got ABC, Disney, ESPN, because it's all the same company. CNN, that's Time Warner, so that's another one. TNT, also Time Warner. House and Garden Television and the Disney Channel, plus ESPN. 12 channels. How much would you pay? $20 a month? Problem with that is maybe it still isn't the locals, is it? Don't you have to have, what are you going to do? What are you going to do in the Academy? You go over to your friend's house when the Academy Award. You go over to your friend's house for the Super Bowl, right? If it's only how many times a year do you really need live TV? The big news story, but you're going to get CNN, right? So that's okay. You're covered there. Super Bowl. ESPN carries a lot of football, a lot of sports. You might be all right. As long as you have a nice neighbor who does have cable. Yeah. It's it's called herd immunization. All of you have to have cable. We'll talk about that. Anything else you want to talk about? 8888 Ask Leo. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Your call's next. Herd cable.
So, Princess Bride refresher, right?
I remember the print. Now that you say that,
So the,
Dread Pirate Roberts never shows up in the Princess Bride, though, does he?
Well, no, it's a handed down name.
He's handed down, so the Carrie gets to be him.
Dread Pirate
Yeah,
Roberts,
yeah.
You know, and the way they do it is so cool.
And who's Inigo Montoya? No, I'm just kidding. Just teasing you now. Dr. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Doctor. Somebody dropped by the studio while I wasn't here. I'm not here on Thursday and Friday, and left a scary monkey coconut head. And I don't know. I feel as if it might be dangerous. It might be voodoo. It was just sitting on my desk, and no one will claim responsibility. Somebody I know was in Hawaii. It was you, phone ranger Heather Hammond. Did you bring me a hand-carved coconut monkey head?
I wouldn't do that to you.
And then it has a lid, and it looks just like the lime should be in the coconut. And then, but what's weird is it says "to the best," and then the rest is garbled. It's blurred.
That's where the monkey's brains go,
This
right?
is very Sherlock Holmesy. I feel like this is the beginning of a mystery. In any event, there is no mystery. Many callers on the line. I am ready to answer some questions. Who do you have for me to start the show?
Yeah, let's start with Addie in London, just because it's getting late
Oh,
there.
we've talked to Addie before, I think. Yeah, it is getting late. It's a late night in London. Addie's staying up to talk to us. Hi, Addie. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
Leo, thank you for taking my call.
Thanks
Good
for
to meet you
calling.
again.
Nice to talk to you again.
Yeah, so what is that, as you know, I, being the most tech-savvy person in my family, I have that obligatory job of being the family's tech support guy. But this time, I need your help to spend my money.
Okay.
All right, so here's the situation. I am on the hunt for some wired in-ear headphones, but I have some very strict requirements. I need to have some in-ear headphones that have volume controls, a button to play and pause, and I need it all to be under £30, which is around $45 somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So I've been looking at the Sennheiser MM30G, which is one option, but what recommendations would you have for me?
That's an interesting question. I don't know if I have a recommendation. The volume control is tied to the device you're using, obviously. The device you're using has to support... Yeah. Well, it has to support that volume control. I know iPods, the up and down are next and previous track. I don't know if it will do volume. In other words, I think it depends on the device you're plugged into, what that...
Primarily, it's going to be a Samsung smartphone, a Galaxy S4 Mini.
Okay.
So
Okay.
there you go.
Okay. So I'm not sure. I'm trying to remember. Well, let's presume that so you have two choices. You can get headphones, I presume, but not at this price, that have their own amp and their own volume control built into the headphones. So you don't want that. What you want is a headphone with a 3-ring mini jack that will send signals pause, play, next, previous, and let's hope up and down volume back to the phone, and the phone needs to understand it. I don't know if Android will understand the volume issue, however. So you might have to get headphones with inline volume, but that's going to cost you. For instance, Dr. Mom's saying there's some Bose in-ear monitors that'll do that, but they're going to be $120. How about these? Yeah, we don't want to spend that much money. I don't know how much that is in pounds, but it's too much. So,
well, if you do 2/3 of that, then that gives you an idea.
Let me see somebody in the chat room. And by the way, I'm taking recommendations from the chat room because I don't I don't have a
And I
recommendation.
saw the
for it.
chat room as well. I'm adding
Yeah.
man 43
How
in
about
there.
these Klipsch? These are $47.95, roughly your price point. Klipsch makes good stuff. Actually, I've heard these. They're the Image S4i. They're rugged, all-weather in-ear headphones, and they have the requisite play up and down. It's really, though, like I said, dependent on the device you're plugged into, what that up and down means. They come in some jazzy colors. Klipsch is a well-known name in terms of speakers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't off to the top of my head know if these are great or not. Most at that price point, most in-ear monitors are going to be okay, not great. And these are wired. So that's the chat room's recommendation. I think that's pretty decent. The Klipsch Image S4i. I'm looking at them on Amazon US for $47.95. The list is $100, but the
Right.
price is considerable. Skull Candy makes similar ones. Those are cheap, but okay. Sennheiser makes good ones. I have to say, I feel like the issue is going to be for volume that I don't think your Galaxy is going to do that.
Right. Perhaps a question for Scott Wilkinson then. When
I shall ask. Yeah, I don't know if he's a headphone fanatic. The COS inline volume control you can add to any headphones. It's like a little amplifier, basically. And it will then add volume control up or down. That's $7 on Amazon. So let's add that to the mix of any headphones that'll give you volume. COS VC20 volume control. And this, I guess, will work on any device. It's not an amp. It doesn't look like it's an amp. It must be just like an attenuator. So you'd probably turn the volume all the way up and then let it attenuate the sound with the little dial there. That's the COS VC20. It's inexpensive anyway. And a number of people in the chat room are pointing me to a very great resource for this, and that's the Wire Cutter. I really love the Wire Cutter. TheWireCutter.com. The idea was started by Brian Lamb, who left Gizmodo some years ago, the gadget blog. And Brian said, there's too much information. I just gave you an example of that. I just gave you a bunch of choices. What we should do is we should look at each category and we should name one and only one, exactly one best. And that for a long time was kind of the purpose of the Wire Cutter. Mission creep being inevitable in every sphere of life. They now have gotten to the point where they are recommending multiple things. In fact, they have a rundown of the best headphones under $40. Not just one, but a number of them. And you can read that. And let's see what they like off the top of my head. Because I found them to be pretty good. Brainwaves Delta, that's $25. The Panasonic ErgoFits, $15. Sol Republic, those are pretty good. I've used the Sol Republics, $41. So you can look at all of these. Sennheiser looks pretty good. Those are more like earbuds, the kind of earbuds you'd get with an iPhone. The not in-ear monitors, but on-ear or you know what I'm talking about? The original iPhone or iPod earbuds. They didn't really go deep in your ear. They just kind of sat on the surface there. They looked like little cones that would just sit on the surface. A lot of people are getting ones that go deeper in the ear, and those are typically called IEMs or in-ear monitors. They give you better sound. They give you better sound isolation because they're kind of like earplugs. In that sense. The ones I prefer, Etymotics, which are a little more expensive than your budget, but I love, ETYMOTICS, very high fidelity. But they literally seal the ear. So I prefer them to the noise-canceling headphones people wear on airplanes, because these really they don't cancel the noise. They cut it. You can't hear anything. You can't hear the flight attendant asking you what you want to eat for dinner. You can't hear anything. The baby crying behind you. You just hear the music, and the reproduction of the music is very good. So generally I say, if you're going to use these a lot, spend a little more money and get some good ones if you can. And I like the Etymotics. But we'll put a link to this Wirecutter article in our show notes at Tech Guy Labs, and mention also a link to those two headphones I recommended from Klipsch. Thanks for the call, Leo Laporte, the Tech Guy. La 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 la. Dun. Boom. I can go on and on then about this other thing, this iPhone versus Android. So the iPhone control signals are unique. So if you're going to use it with an iPhone, you have to get headphones designed for iPhone. But there is a standard system. It's 3 rings. 1 ring is a mic, then left and right channel. I'm not sure how they signal the pause, but somehow they do that, a pause. And then there's those up and down ones, but usually that's next and previous. The hardware could interpret it differently. The hardware could say, oh, that's volume up and volume down. But I like this idea of this little attenuator. I'm sure that's all it is, though. I'm sure it's nothing fancier. Because it's not an amp, and it's only $7. You know, the ideal thing to do, but nobody wants to do this, is to have a headphone amp. But then you have to carry this big thing around. Scott Wilkinson.
Who wants to do that?
Who wants to do that? Well, I do. I just ordered these. Almost working in our chat room. Sent me a link to a review of these. I'm very intrigued by this, by FiO, who we like. They're making a $99 high-res portable music player, or DAP, digital audio player. $99. It supports FLAC, up to 9624 FLAC.
Right.
It's kind of cute looking. Is that it?
It kind of looks like an old iPod.
It looks like an iPod. Doesn't come with any memory, so you have to add a card, but you can add up to 128 gigs. So for $200, which is less than an iPod, a 128 gig player that will play FLAC and high-res audio back. So I ordered one for review, just to see. The review here, and this is I think this is a pretty good review from Headphonics, said the interesting thing about this is, like the Pono, it has headphone and line out. And they said, you know, the DAC is a good TI DAC. It's probably a Burr Brown DAC. But they weren't impressed by the headphone amp. But what you could do is take line out of this and put it into a headphone amp. In fact, I have a better FiO headphone amp I might try with this. And it gets about 10 hours battery life, charges via standard, micro USB. He says the UI is pretty good, but it can decode 192.24.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, it's all the way up. FLAC, APE, ALAC, WAVE, and WMA, as well as, of course, MP3 AUG and AAC. So
wow, that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. Leo Laporte, Scott Wilkinson, little baby talk from our home theater guru.
Having just too much fun here, man.
So we had, you heard the call I just had from Audie Man in London, England. And he's looking for inexpensive in-ear monitors. You got some recommendations for him?
Well, when I heard that call, I went right over to my go-to site for headphones, which is innerfidelity.com. And they have what they call the Wall of Fame, which are their recommended components in all kinds of different categories of headphones. And in the in-ear monitors, the IEMs, which you mentioned, there are several that I think would be very good. The Philips, well, let's see. The first one I want to recommend, a little more expensive, $99, list price. Maybe you can get them cheaper, from a company called Hi-Fi Man.
I have their $1,000 ones. I have their planar magnetics. I like their stuff a lot. Beautiful,
beautiful stuff. These are the RE400s. I don't know whether they have the volume control and that kind of stuff that your caller was interested in. I'm just looking at these in terms of sound quality and price. Philips, believe it or not, makes one called the Fidelio S1, also $100. The Philips TX2 is $40. And this is Tyle Hertzens, who's the editor of Inner Fidelity, really knows his stuff and spends a lot of time with these headphones. So I would trust his recommendations very much. So Philips TX2, $40. Here's a Chinese company, Xiaomi, Xiaomi. The Piston 2, $25.
Yeah, that's Xiaomi. They make a lot of
Xiaomi. That's what
Chinese
phones
too. They're big Chinese.
Yeah, exactly. So I just wanted to pass those along as possibilities.
Good. We have a call for you if you want. John is on the line from Moorpark, California. John, you called at the right time. Our home theater gurus here, Scott Wilkinson.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Hey, John.
Well, hi. In the last 7 years, I've gotten 2 receivers, and they've both gone kaput. They don't seem to last very long. And also, I don't need speakers, and I have an independently powered subwoofer. So now that this last receiver went down. I just want to know what's a good, reliable receiver that lasts.
Well,
I mean, how long should a receiver last?
Well, they should last a long time. They shouldn't last only a year or two. What
That's really
brand?
unusual, yeah.
It is. It is. I've got Pioneers that are 15 years old and are still going strong.
I was surprised. My first one was a Samsung, and this one that just went down is a Pioneer Elite. So I was real surprised.
Oh, yeah, that's very surprising. Pioneer makes a very good product, and so that's an anomaly in my opinion.
Do you have power conditioning on your home theater?
What is that?
Yeah, I think this is maybe the problem. So, solid-state electronics rarely fail. These are all solid-state. They're not tubes.
Right.
And if they don't fail early, they'll probably never fail or fail, in 100 years because there's nothing.
Exactly
there's no movement. There's nothing to die unless you get a surge, a power surge, or a brownout. If the power in your house, and it could be local to your house or it could be in your neighborhood, is inconsistent, maybe you're not getting blackouts, but if you're getting brownouts, that could actually really tax your home theater stuff. This stuff is, like all solid-state electronics, very sensitive to power. So I would look at getting a good, they make them home theater, at least a surge suppressor. I think what you really want is
you want a power conditioner.
As a power conditioner, exactly. You want a
conditioner.
Yeah, and these are expensive.
We have surge protection.
Yeah, but that won't protect you against low power, and it won't protect you against real spikes.
Right, or what they call voltage sags, which are another name for brownouts. So if the voltage sags below a certain amount, then the electronics get really stressed and can, in fact, fail. But you're in Moorpark, California, so there's not really much chance of lightning strikes. You're in Southern California. It depends. Right. So a surge protector I don't think is that as important as a power conditioner. And we're assuming here that's the problem. I mean, a Samsung receiver, they haven't made receivers in a long time. They do make home theater in a box. Is that what you're talking about, or was it a standalone receiver?
No. Actually, the Samsung was a home theater in a box with an independently powered subwoofer.
Are those the speakers you're still using?
Yes, yeah, they're the same speakers. They work.
Well, there's a possibility that might be the problem, that the speakers might be a lower impedance. I kind of doubt this, but it's just something that came to mind. That if the speakers are designed to be used with that Samsung head unit or receiver, and then you try and plug them into something else, that may be straining the other receiver as well, because those speakers were designed to be used with that Samsung unit, and there might be something about them, possibly low impedance, possibly something else, that stresses another receiver more than it should.
There was an odd symptom that happened before this receiver went down, and every now and then the volume would surge up spontaneously.
Really?
And then,
by itself?
Yeah, by itself, and then, if I had it on, I walked out of the room and I heard the loud volume, then I'd come back and then I'd tap the volume dial, and then it would go back to normal. So I don't know if something was starting to go bad, and now it's completely shot.
Oh, this symptom happened on the Pioneer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, to tell you the truth, my suspicion would be that the speakers are somehow incompatible with that receiver, with other receivers besides the one they came with. That's the problem with home theater in a box.
Even the subwoofer?
The subwoofer probably less so, because it has its own amplifier, as you say, and most subwoofers do.
Right.
So all it needs is a line level signal. It doesn't need a speaker level signal. So that's not as much of an issue. But I got to tell you, I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, replacing all your speakers is not going to be cheap necessarily, but it's the first thing I think of when you're telling me what this problem is, because Pioneer and Pioneer Elite products, as Leo said, they'll either fail right away. Any solid state electronics will either fail very quickly, very soon after you get it, or they won't fail at all. That's the typical profile of what we're talking about here.
Well, that's why I called in. I thought it was really odd, and I just wondered,
It's very odd.
Yeah.
We frequently get calls from people who have electronics dying, more often than they should. And I have to think it's always a power issue.
Power issue. That's the other very common thing.
Or you don't have a good ground. Get a good electrician out there. Check your ground. Make sure that the polarity of the plugs is right. And then an electrician can put whole house surge suppression in. It's not very expensive. That's not a bad way to go. But I think for your really sensitive electronics, and that includes your home theater and your computer systems, power conditioning is not a bad idea. Well, that makes it just a smooth sine wave of power instead of something clipped, something noisy, something that's up and down. And that really can do more damage than one would think. You're right. Lightning strikes in an area where there's lightning is also an issue.
Yeah,
lots of amperage.
But power conditioner will also make sure if the voltage goes down below a certain value, it'll kind of bring it back up for a little while anyway. Right. Ideally, I mean, with a power outage, you want to get an uninterruptible power supply, a UPS, which has a battery that keeps things running for at least long enough for you to turn them off. Yeah, we're gonna, one of these days I'm gonna have to get. There is some really interesting stuff about UPSs. They're not all the same. Really? There's some that there's an intermittent period of time between the fail and the switch over. There's some. I was talking to Russell, our IT guy, and we have to use a very particular kind of uninterruptible power supply, or UPS here, and there really is a difference. And maybe I'll get him in and we can give us a master class. Scott Wilkinson is at the AVS Forum, avsforum.com. He's editor-in-chief there and, of course, hosts the Home Theater Geeks podcast every week on this network. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. So, what was Russell saying in our engineering meeting the other day? It was sine wave. Yeah. He said we were talking about having a clean sine wave, and this is an APC smart UPS. Is this the one he recommends? Well, APC is a very common consumer brand. You get it at all the big box stores and everywhere. But there's, I think even APC sells some they're intermittent. And there's some that are continuous. You want continuous, I think, but I should talk to Russell about that. That's a beyond my pay grade. Yeah. Stepping sine wave is what we want. A stepping sine wave. What is a stepping sine wave? I don't think I've ever heard that one before.
You don't want a stepped. You want a pure sine wave, not a stepped sine wave. A stepped sine wave
that's
looks
what
like
I would
this.
Think. Yeah.
You want
kind of like it, right? Kind of like it was sampled.
I don't know.
David Bix writes here. Has he called Pioneer support?
Yeah.
I would assume that his thing was out of warranty, or else he would have just returned it. I suppose I should have asked that too. Oh well. Any good? David Bix asked, wouldn't any good receiver do 4 ohms and up? The answer is no. There are receivers that won't do 4 ohms. In fact, quite a few. There are some that will, but a lot that won't. So if those speakers are 4 ohms, then that could easily be the problem. I know that the M&K SS150s, the old ones anyway, are 4 ohm. My friend David Vaughn, who has been with me sometimes when I've filled in for Leo on the radio show, he's got these M&K speakers, and he has to be careful about what amplifiers he uses because they are 4 ohm speakers. So the answer is no. Any good receiver will not do 4 ohms and up. They'll do 6 ohms and up, but 4 can be a real problem. And I mentioned UPS. Don't most receivers have a 2-year warranty? A lot of them do. I don't know about most, but many certainly. I don't know about, and the Elite probably does. So I should have asked him how long he's had the Elite. That was a mistake on my part. I should have asked him how long he had it. And if it was under 2 years, then it might still be under warranty. That would be that would be a good thing to check. So if you're still listening, John in Moore Park, or if you're on the stream or whatever, then that would be something to check out. Adaman423 is that guy from Britain. Hey, welcome into the chat room. iLover asks, do you recommend the Phorus by Sony? I don't know what that is. Phorus? Are those headphones? I don't know that name. JJ to the 4884 asked, do you mod your cheap headphones? No, I don't mod headphones. I'm not strongly into the headphone hobby. That's a subsection of audiophilia that is completely on its own. It's interesting. I listen to headphones certainly, but people get crazy about modding their headphones and modding their headphone amps and so on and so forth. I haven't gotten into that particular part of the hobby. So anyway, Almost Working says had a stereo receiver that did this. It was a company recall and under warranty. That's interesting. I have not heard of any Pioneer Elite recall. So JJ to the 4884, where should he search on Amazon? Well, search for AV receivers, I guess, would be the thing to do.
Leo Laporte, the Tech High. 8888, ask Leo. Let's move on. More calls. Our next call comes to us from Las Vegas, Nevada. David's on the line. Hi, David.
Hey, Leo. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure. Thanks for calling in. What can I do for you?
Yeah, I was speaking to Heather. I'm going to be going to China in about 10 days.
Work or play?
Honeymoon. So
a honeymoon in China. Wow. That sounds exciting. Yeah. Where in China are you going to
go? Shanghai.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so I've been considering...
I guess if you live in Vegas...
Yeah.
You have to up the ante for the honeymoon. You can't just, oh, let's go to Vegas. Oh, yeah. No. So Shanghai's perfect. It's the Vegas of China.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, it'll be my first time. My wife's family's there. So.
Oh, good. All right. Well, that makes sense then, yeah. So good. So you have somebody who will speak the language and help you get around. That sounds like a wonderful time.
Yes, thank you.
So the food is phenomenal.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I've been considering looking at purchasing while I'm there a Chinese manufactured smartphone. And there's a couple dozen manufacturers, as you can imagine, and it's a bit overwhelming.
You know what I really like? The issue is going to be, of course, bringing it back. Do you want it to work in the U.S.?
That's my concern, but purchasing an unlocked phone, with 4G compatibility.
Yeah, that's the key. You need to have the same, and this often isn't the case, the same radio frequencies that, are you going to use it on T-Mobile or AT&T?
Well, it could go on both, but right now I have T-Mobile.
Okay. So that's good because you can put a T-Mobile SIM in any phone. They don't mind. You know what you should do, and I don't remember what the frequencies are, but you need to research what bands T-Mobile uses, not just for its HSPA Plus, but also for its LTE. You want to get all the bands that they use and make sure any phone that you buy supports those bands. The manufacturer I'd recommend is Xiaomi, the one actually Scott just mentioned.
Yeah, I know they're the largest.
They're not only the largest, they make a couple of really great phones, like the Mi 4, that I've played with and I've been very impressed with. These are highly competitive.
Now, does that one have the MediaTek processor?
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah.
I know some of them are going to the Qualcomm Snapdragon, but I've heard that there's some overheating issues with the Snapdragon.
Yeah, that I'm not familiar with. I have Snapdragons in all my phones because almost all the phones sold in the United States are Snapdragons. And I haven't had any issues with heating, let alone overheating. The Mi 4. Let's see. I'm just doing some quick research here on the processor. I don't see it here. It's a 1920 by 1080, so it's a little lower res than some of the phones you might get in the U.S. But by doing that, you get a much better battery life. No, it's a Snapdragon 801. Actually, the Mi 4 is maybe a little bit out of date now because that's an older processor. But they are using the Snapdragon, it looks like. I wouldn't worry so much about that. Make sure you get the right frequencies. And then look at them. I mean, these are pretty much, in many cases, the same components you're going to see in a high-end smartphone in the U.S.
Another thing that I considered is Lenovo and Asus. They're coming out with Intel Atom 64-bit processor. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think you're better off with ARM, to be honest with you. So so in the desktop and laptop world, it's almost all Intel, and almost 100% Intel. And the Atom is widely used in the cheap Intel based Windows laptops like the Stream and so forth from HP. On the smartphones are almost all ARM-based processors. It's a different architecture. It's better for, it's slower, but remember, these are little devices. We don't need, massive horsepower, but they're much better battery life and so forth. Intel's been really struggling. They want to get in this mobile market. They know the future of computing is in mobile devices, but very few phones and a few tablets, but very few phones use Intel chips at this point. And I don't see any reason to experiment. I think stick with an ARM-based architecture. Qualcomm really has it on lockdown right now.
Yeah, they do. That's for
I think
sure.
they're really doing a great job. Somebody's saying in the chat room, it's the Snapdragon 810, which is the brand new 64-bit Snapdragon some people are worried about with overheating. And I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, this thing is massive. This is they're putting a lot of horsepower in these chips, and it's a very tight space. But I don't have one yet, and I don't know if there is a problem. Remember, Samsung makes its own chips. They have the Exynos chip. If they turn their back on Qualcomm, it could be a lot more than simply technology. It could just be, hey, we want to make our own chips. I would definitely, you have an opportunity here. And, while we know about Xiaomi in the U.S., there are probably many other interesting brands. There's Huawei, of course. There's
Right. Mizu, I think.
Yeah, there's quite a few brands, and there may be some stuff that's interesting, and you'll find it very inexpensive. The other thing, every time I have my friend comes back, Charbax comes back from Shanghai and China, he brings me clone phones that are almost identical to iPhones and Samsung phones, but in fact are not. And that this one actually that he gave me from Shenzhen looks exactly like an iPhone 6. Even says iPhone and has the Apple logo on the back, but it is not. In fact, it's running Android. So there's some really interesting stuff out there that would certainly be worth looking at. The clone phones are good for amusement. I wouldn't say it's a good idea to buy for. You might have trouble getting it back in the United States for one thing.
That's true.
The ones I have the highest regard for, possibly just because of my own limited experience, is Xiaomi. I really think they're doing some amazing stuff.
Yeah, that was my first go-to on that one. It seemed to be the number one and the probably the top rated.
I think they're about to enter the U.S. market as well.
Yeah, I think I've heard something like that,
which
too.
might be interesting, too. Xiaomi is the company that one of Google's top executives, Hugo Barra, left. He left Android. He was a bigwig at Google, left Android to go run Xiaomi. And I think that the fact that Barra is there is a good sign. So, and I don't know. I don't frankly know what to say about spyware. This is one of the issues that the Department of Commerce has raised. They've told American corporations to be careful about buying phones from Chinese companies because of potential for spying. But I have to think that the Chinese government has a lot more reason to say don't buy American phones because the NSA may have infested them. We're all spying on each other. I don't know which is worse. Who do you want spying on you, the Chinese or the Americans? Frankly, I'd rather the Chinese. They're not going to come knocking on my door. So I wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't worry about that too much. Xiaomi has it. The other thing to think about is Xiaomi has its own store, now the Google Play Store, and they've replaced some of the Google services with Chinese services. For instance, Weibo instead of Twitter, things like that. And you're going to have to deal with that a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it's worth it, though. Your wife is Chinese?
Yeah.
Yeah, so she speaks Chinese. Do you speak any Chinese at all?
Very little.
Yeah. Well, this is an opportunity. Keep that phone in Chinese. It'll be good for practice.
Oh, yeah, that won't happen. Hey, can I ask you one other thing?
Sure.
If you speak to Johnny Jett today, if he might have a recommendation for a good, reasonable hotel in Phuket, Thailand, I think we're going to go there.
All right. I bet he does. That's a great resort, and he may know. Yeah, you're going. See, now that's a honeymoon. Is that after Shanghai?
It's in between.
Yeah. Now Phuket, there you got a beach, you got sunshine, you got coconuts, you got monkeys. That's the way to go. I'll ask Johnny about Phuket.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Hey, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful honeymoon.
Okay,
Take care. China is an amazing place to visit. Really an amazing place to visit. The folks at Xiaomi have their own version of Android called the MIUI, which I think is quite good. One of the things that they're known for is the battery size on these devices. They are easily, the Mi 4 is easily the best battery life of any phone made in the world right now. And they just came out with a massive, the Mi Note, which is 7 inches. It's ginormous phone. So an interesting company. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. More calls right after this. 5.5 inches. So I guess it's not that big. This is actually smaller than a Galaxy Note 4. And this is the MediaTek processor in this one. All right, Scotty.
Here I am.
I'm giving you the con, my friend.
Thank you so much.
Take her
Full
out.
Speed ahead.
Yeah.
We've been talking in the chat room about that fellow's problem with the speakers and the receiver. Beatmaster is exactly right. Home theater and a box speakers usually have a proprietary plug to prevent usage with an incompatible amp. So this caller might have modified that plug. I didn't ask that. That's a very good point. That's exactly right too. They do often use proprietary plugs. Hodor had asked, impedance mismatch, would that result in speakers destroying the amp or the other way around? And it could happen either way, but I think the more common, more likely scenario is that the amp or receiver would get destroyed because it's being asked to do more than it was designed to do. So it'll get hotter, and that right there we did talk about. We'll have potential issues. The electronics will heat up too much and fail. So that is another thing to be thinking about. So a lot of people in the chat room actually have had some experience almost working, had an amp, had this happen 10 years ago. The stereo would shoot up and down in volume. It was a Harman Kardon. I don't think we can relate it to the brand particularly, although a lot of people in the chat room have been talking about Onkyo receivers and having HDMI board problems, that overheating and things like that, intermittency and so on. And I have heard a lot of stories about that. So I sort of had the thought that that was a problem and Onkyo had fixed it. I'm not 100% sure that that's true anymore. If anybody in the chat room knows, M. Heiss particularly, you might know. My friend Mike Heiss, who has been on my show many times. That might be, I don't know if that's still a problem or not. Let's see. I can't remember the question that had been asked. I was going to answer just before the break. So if somebody in the chat room can remind me, my scrolling chat room window only goes so far. Web 8339, what's the best non-OLED TV with the best black levels on the market today? Very good question. I would have to say probably Sony. The Sony full array backlit local dimming FALD TVs have exceptionally good black levels. I have to think about that a little bit. As I recall, I'm pretty sure that I would have to say Sony's. LG's not. Sharp's definitely not. Panasonic, the new Panasonic AX900 apparently is really quite good at the black level, in the black level department. So that may be another possibility. It's a 4K though, and you know, the question about whether to buy a 4K now or not is a good one. Mike Heiss here says, yes, I believe it was fixed, and it was from a line of models 2 or 3 years back. I think they even did a thing where you could get a new model swap for some AVRs. That's Onkyo, what we're talking about there. I didn't think that it was necessarily continuing to be a problem. That's it. A tried and true way of converting VHS to DVD. That was it. The tech guy, Seth. Thank you. Yes, there are these devices, and I have one, in fact. Panasonic made them, Philips made them, Magnavox, which was a division of Philips, where you had a VHS drive on one side and a DVD recorder on the other side. And you put the VHS in, you put the DVD-R, a blank DVD-R, into the DVD recorder section. You hit a button, and it transfers over. That's by far the easiest way to do it. If you want to, do anything more fancy, some of those devices also had a hard drive in them, where you could take the VHS, put it on the hard drive, and maybe even some of them I think had minimal editing capabilities. So you could do a little editing, chopping up the content into different pieces or whatever. But really the best way to do it, if you really want to spend the time, is to import into a computer. And I'd have to research how, a VHS drive. Well, you could get an analog to digital converter. I'm sure there are plenty of those. I know there are, where you just play the VHS into this little box and it converts it to digital, sends it into your computer. Then you can use a video editing program to really clean it up and do a bunch of stuff to it, whatever you want, and then spit it out to a DVD recorder. Yes, David Bix, standalone DVD recorders are the easiest way to convert, but they're becoming extinct. And this is the point I was about to make, which is that the Panasonic and the Magnavox and these Philips VHS to DVD recorder converter units are becoming extinct. You can probably still find them on Amazon or elsewhere, eBay maybe, but they aren't very common anymore. So if you want to get one, you probably should get one sooner than later. Mike Heist, too bad my NR808 Onkyo receiver hasn't failed. I would want to fail it and trade it in for an Atmos model. Yes, exactly right. Onkyo is one of the first companies to make an Atmos-compatible AVR, and they've got a whole bunch of them. David Bix makes a good point. The problem with a PC or Mac-based capture card is that it's easy to lose sync with the audio. Then you'd have to use an editing program to resync the audio with the video. It's kind of a pain in the butt. Good question, Web9811. DVD plus or minus R? Many years ago, when recordable DVD was a big thing, I did some research into this, and the minus R blanks are more compatible with more DVD players than plus R. Plus R was a Philips format, and it had some advantages, which I can't remember off the top of my head now. It's been many years. But I do remember that a minus R produced the most compatible disc at the end. And here we go.
Oh, hi. I think from now on, I should do the entire radio show as if I just stumbled into the studio and I don't know. Oh, hi, how are you? And you would be Heather Hammond, I think, yes?
Yeah.
And then, so what happens now?
Who are all these lovely people? What do you want to do? Since we're all assembled, we might as well have a little party.
Let's put on a show. I could sing.
A great idea.
And do a little soft shoe, but maybe it'd be better if I answered the phones. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. It turns out you know a thing or two about a thing or two.
I see them ringing.
Want to pick your brain.
I see them ringing. Do you think I should talk to Jay?
In Providence, North Carolina?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Hi, Jay. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
I agree with that decision. I think you should talk to me.
We picked well.
Yes, I wanted to see if your famous instructions for taking care of viruses, that is, removing them on Windows machines, are the same for Macs, although I don't think I have one. I want to be precautionary.
Yeah, they aren't. So there's always a debate about whether Macs are inherently safer or just less of a target because there's fewer of them. And I think it's a little of both. Virus authors are going to write to the most profitable platform they can write to, of course, because they're trying to make money. It used to be they just were trying to mess with people. In fact, that might explain why some of the earliest viruses were on the Mac. But that was way back when in the System 7 and OS 9 days. When OS 10 was created, It was based on Unix. In fact, the core of Macintosh operating system is BSD. It's not Linux, it's a true Unix core. And it's open source. They call it the Darwin Project. Apple contributes back into the Darwin Project. And so the underlying operating system, in my opinion, because it's based on Unix, is more secure. Unix, unlike Windows, from day one, Unix was a multi-user operating system. That by itself dictates some security. You're not worried about hackers, but you don't want some guy to, open your files and see what you're doing, right? So multi-user operating systems already kind of have built in the notion of ownership of files and a restriction on who can operate on files. There's that notion of root. You've probably heard root or administrator. In Unix, it's very strongly enforced. Until Windows XP, it wasn't enforced at all in Windows. So all of the security that's been added to the Windows operating system has really been done kind of after the fact. And and it's not that Windows couldn't be secure. In fact, by Windows 8, which is the current version of Windows, I think they've really kind of locked it down pretty well. So much so, the proof of that is that bad guys no longer try to attack, or rarely try to attack, through flaws in the Windows operating system. They now try to attack through flaws in other programs that you use to get on the internet, your browser, Flash, the Adobe Reader, things like that. Things that are exposed to the internet but are not made by Microsoft in most cases. I guess Internet Explorer is. And that really is that's a strong indicator that Microsoft has finally kind of licked the virus problem on the Windows side. Nevertheless, in order to make people comfortable with Windows, in order to, Microsoft has always kind of, and I don't think this is a bad thing at all, has always erred on the side of compatibility, of making existing Windows users comfortable with the next version of Windows. So one of the things they do, for instance, on Windows that isn't the case on the Mac is that most users have full root or administrator privileges from day one. And that makes it easier to use the computer because you can install software, you can do anything you want. You're the administrator, you're the boss. It is not as secure. On the Macintosh, they have a similar idea of administrator versus regular user, but when you need to do something like install software on a Macintosh, you are required, regardless of how you're logged in, you're required to provide administrator credentials. And that's a Unixy idea, the idea, if you're a Unix user, of sudo, the idea that in order to do something dangerous, you have to prove that you really have the right to do it, that you know the administrator password. That by itself makes Macintoshes, I think, a lot safer. It's so and then there's other things that they're doing, that Apple's doing, that I think are quite clever. That behind the scenes that are making it hard for viruses to get on the Mac. All of this to say that it's unlikely you have a virus. Bad guys have not been trying to write Mac viruses, both because it's just no incentive. There's fewer of them out there. So even if you did write a great virus, so what? And frankly, it's harder. You have to really work harder to get a virus on a Mac. Most of the time you have to get some real cooperation from the user. So what makes you think you have a virus?
Well, the only thing that I've noticed as far as problems lately is that when I go to move files to the trash or to an external drive, as the case may be, it's a lot slower, and it's been that way since Mavericks and now with Yosemite. That
could be a hard drive error. That could be a lot of other things. I don't think it's first of all, there are very few malware exploits out there. And it's very hard to get them. And the kind of things you hear about, like Thunderstrike on the Mac, in fact, all of the most recent flaws on the Macintosh, which Apple has fixed, require that a bad guy be physically sitting down at your computer. And they have to have a Thunderbolt device that you plug. I mean, it's just not easy to hack a Mac. So I would not worry about a virus. Now, to specifically answer your question, what do you do about virus removal? Well, it really, there's no standard answer, because you notice that there aren't all these. Do you know how many tools there are on the Windows side for removing malware? There's hundreds of them. This is a big business. There's tons of antivirus companies. There's programs like Malwarebytes. There's a huge number of them because it's a problem on the Windows side, and there are very few on the Mac. So the first thing you'd have to do is go to, say, Intego, I-N-T-E-G-O. They make a Mac antivirus. There are a handful of companies that do. Intego's probably the best. download and install their antivirus, and verify you have a virus. And then all of these programs, just like on the Windows side, will quarantine. That is, they'll find where the virus lives and move those virus files into a safe sandbox where they can't affect the system. That's just like Windows, the best way to do it. If you want to do this by hand, you can, but it requires a kind of a deeper understanding of how the Macintosh operating system works, and what, the KEXT files, all these files that might start up, the kernel extensions, you have to know what folders in the system folder to look at. Apple actually actively hides the system folder because they don't really want you messing with it, and on and on and on. But I suppose somewhere there's a guide to how to do this. I don't think it's necessary. And B, I think it's probably a lot of work and requires some significant expertise to do it right. And I don't suppose there are a lot of people who do it because it's just not common. It's so unlikely that you have a virus. And the symptoms you described are completely consonant with the most common problem all computers suffer from: hard drive failure. Not, a hard drive that's starting to have problems, exactly what's going to happen. It's going to slow down things like erasing the hard drive to become harder. Just check, make sure you didn't turn on secure erase. That is a nice feature in the Macintosh. You could turn it on in the Finder settings so that when you erase a file, it doesn't just release that file area for reuse. It overwrites it and overwrites it again. And that significantly slows down file erasures. It's kind of funny because the first common viruses were all on the Macintosh platform. But this was many moons ago, and it hasn't happened since. And I think since OS X, it's been a very secure platform. It's just not something we have to deal with nowadays, frankly. Johnny in Los Angeles, Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Hi, Johnny.
Hi, how you doing, Leo?
I'm well.
Do you want me to start with what's wrong or how it came about?
Tell me what's wrong first.
Okay, it says I turned on my computer. It's just a little over a year old.
Hold on. We have the magic sound, which tells me that I have to take a break, but I will be right back with your call.
Okay.
Your call specifically, right after the break. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Hey, can I tell you, as long as we're talking about the cloud, we have been using, now I use, and for a long time used various cloud-based solutions, including Google's own voice. But the truth is, when you become a business, you need something a little bit more, shall we say, robust. I'm so happy with Ring Central. And now that Ring Central integrates with Google for Work, I am so happy. So we figured this out 5 years ago now when we built the studios here. We didn't want to go to the phone company for our phone system. And I was told, Leo, you have to have a phone system. My employees told me, we're not going to use our cell phones anymore, Leo. We want a phone on our desk. So we went to Ring Central. Russell told us about this, and we have loved them for 5 years ever since. All your phone systems are together in the cloud. Voice, fax, text. You get conference calling. You get high-def video meetings. It's all in the cloud, and it's all part of Ring Central. It works with your cell phones, of course, so I have a Ring Central app on all my devices, and I can place calls from the business number anywhere I am. I can receive calls and even texts from the business number, the 800 number, anywhere I am. Ring Central makes sure all your calls are, get this, encrypted and private. They use secure voice, which is the way. I mean, this is fantastic. So if you're worried about, the phone company snooping, don't. You can customize your system from a web browser or from the mobile apps that Ring Central provides. You keep your existing numbers. You can use toll-free numbers, local extensions, vanity numbers. It's easy, create new numbers. Customer support is free and 24/7. You get everything. If you're a business looking for a phone system, I cannot recommend this more highly. It is fantastic. And they just announced Ring Central for Google. This makes me so happy. You can bet we're going to do this quick. Now you can integrate your company's Google for Work accounts with Ring Central into a seamless communications hub. You can handle everything without leaving Google Apps. You can make phone calls in Google Apps. Use the dial pad on your screen to make calls from Gmail. Click any number on the screen in Gmail and Contacts and Calendar, and it'll place a call on your Ring Central system. And it will come. And the reason you want to do this, it'll come from your company's 800 number, your business number. This is fantastic. Listen to voicemails directly within Gmail. plus many other features like faxing from Google Drive, viewing text messages, scheduling conference calls. RingCentral, under $25 a month per user, and you can start right now with a 30-day free, risk-free trial. Plus, by the way, for every desk phone, and this is just for Twit listeners, so don't tell your friends about this one. No, you can't. For every desk phone you buy, you get a second phone free up to a total of 20 phones. That's a good deal. RingCentral.com. We have a special 800 number for you, 800-543-9980. Just make sure you use the promo code TWIT. 800-543-9980. Or just visit ringcentral.com and click that free trial button. Ringcentral.com, offer code TWIT, or call 800-543-9980. Love this. RingCentral, putting your local phone company out of business since 19... Let's see. We picked up the line on Johnny in Los Angeles, and I had to put you on hold. Thank you, Johnny, for your patience. What can I do for you?
Okay. I turned on my computer. It's a Lenovo. It's just a little over a year old, and I rarely use it. I use my older one, which I prefer. And the logo comes on, the Lenovo logo, and it just stays there. It's not frozen. It just stays there, and after a minute or two, sentence pops up. It says, error 1962, no operating system found. Press any key to repeat boot sequence. And that's it.
That's called broken.
Yes, it is.
So one thing you can do when
with this machine, because you recommend Lenovo so much, and I went and bought one. I paid $700.
All computers could have problems. It's not Lenovo's fault. But wait a minute. Hold on a sec. One thing you can do when you see the Lenovo logo is you can usually hit escape. All the companies do this now. It really annoys me. They cover up useful boot sequence information with a big ad for the company. Dell, Lenovo, whatever, and they let you HP. But usually if you hit escape, you can get rid of that ad and you can see the process it's going through, and that might give you a clue as to what's wrong. The error you're getting means there's either no hard drive, the hard drive can't be read, or there is a hard drive and when it's read, there's no operating system on it, which could mean merely that the master boot record is damaged. It could be a very little thing wrong with it. But is it still under warranty?
No, it isn't. It just left it.
Of course. And it was working fine before.
Yes, of course. And I'll tell you, I don't know whether this came about, but I have Windows 8, and which I hated. But anyway, I got it because I was forced to get it. I didn't want it. But my point is this. For the first time, I was working on my computer, and I said, well, I'm going to go into sleep mode. There's no hibernation mode with this 8, just sleep. And I said, I'm going to put it in sleep and come back 3 hours later and work again. And I did that. And then and I was in pictures, by the way, and then when I come back 3 hours later and turn the computer on, my pictures came up, but everything froze. The keyboard was dead, the mouse was dead, and it froze, and I couldn't even turn off the computer with the on and off button. I had to unplug it from the back, and then after 5 minutes, I replugged it, and then the logo came on, and it just stayed in the logo. It wasn't frozen, but it just stayed in the logo. And then after a couple of minutes, that the error 1962, no operating system found, came on, and blah, blah, blah. And sometimes, if I turn the computer manually off and on, it will come on after the 5th time, sometimes after the 12th time. But last time, it took 31 times before it found the operating system and came back on and said, everything's working fine. I don't understand this.
Oh, now you stop talking. I'm just as soon as I take a bite of food.
Okay.
Keep talking for a little longer.
well, I'm finished, actually. And I'm finished with this computer.
No. It's simple. You can.
It's simple.
Of course, the minute I bite a donut, he stops talking. So here's the deal. Your hard drive died, and it died in the middle of an operation. It doesn't matter. It died. But we don't know how badly dead it is. Is there anything on that computer that you really, really need? Any special stuff?
Actually, no, because I had a problem a year ago and I lost and I called you, by the way, but I lost 86 important files, and now I've got everything on flash drives.
Smart man, you've been backing up. See, most smart people, they only lose data once. There's a
You
few
got
people
that
lose
right.
data twice.
You got that right.
But shame on you. Lose data once, that's the computer's fault.
Right.
So you're so good. That's good news. So
Thank you.
there are a couple of things you could do here. It could just be try recovering Windows, reinstalling Windows.
How do I do that? I mean, just you said reinstalling Windows. Okay.
Yeah, so that Lenovo, it depends on whether this works, depends on how dead the drive is. If it's just a bad master boot record, which is completely possible from what you've described,
right?
It could just be that reinstalling Windows will work, and you can do that. I'm trying to remember on Windows 8, you know, there's a way to do it if you can boot up, but if you can't, did you?
Well, I'll tell you what I did. I do have a disk that has.
Oh, you
drivers.
did?
No, it has drivers on it only. And finally, when I got the machine working, I put that Lenovo driver's disk in there, and it successfully went through its bit, but it didn't help.
Yeah. Because there's nothing on that of importance, not like like the operating system.
There might be.
Yeah, no, you hope so, right?
Right.
So I'm just trying to remember. You know, if you can boot Windows 8, there's a nice kind of restore it to the original state command in the control panel. But let me see.
Yeah, but that doesn't work. I went through all of those.
How did you do that if the computer wasn't working?
Yeah, I went through those after I got it to work. I just thought, well, I'm just going to go through these anyway. So if it's something so damaged, it doesn't matter any. You know, it doesn't matter.
But how did you do it?
How did I do it? When I got the machine, when I kept turning it off and on.
So you were able to get it to boot once anyway.
You know, I've gotten it to it's booted more than once.
Oh, okay.
But it takes 5 times.
It takes 12
times.
It's
the last time 31 times.
Oh yeah, you told me that. It's actually definitely a failing hard drive. So even if you can reinstall it, I think what you want to do is replace it. So it's not a hard thing to replace. I'm not sure. Some Lenovo's you can literally do it yourself, but more recently, and this is a Windows 8 machine, so it's probably more recent, I would guess you're going to have to bring it to somebody to replace the hard drive. But literally, that's all that has to be replaced.
Well, I can replace the hard drive. I've done those.
Yeah, it just depends on how hard. I don't know how hard it is to get in that Lenovo, but go online, search for replace.
See, that's the problem, Leo. I'm not online.
Yeah. Oh, you don't have any computer. I thought you had another one you like to use.
I have 3 actually, and they all work. I have an old Dell,
okay,
and I'm
go online with that one.
Huh?
Go online with the other computer and search for this particular model of Lenovo and replacing the hard drive. And if it's a simple, you know, and you'll find out, there'll be a YouTube video, somebody will have done it, and you'll find out how hard it is. And it may be it's a fairly simple thing to do. Buying a new hard drive for that thing would be less than $100. If you do the work yourself, boom, you're done. Then you'll reinstall Windows. That might be a little bit tricky because you know, Windows was on your partition. Always recommend, folks, if you can, and every computer nowadays will say this at some point when you first get it, it'll say, now let's make some recovery disks. Please do that. You can do it on a USB key if your key is big enough. I think it only needs to be 4 gigs, maybe 6 or 8. You can then make it work. SSD has the answer in the chat room. If you hard shut down Windows 8.1 over 3 times, it'll bring up the dialog menu to restore Windows. So you might try restoring Windows one more time. Format, the key here is you got to format the drive. You got to wipe it, start all over, because it could just be that the formatting on the drive has got munged up and it can't be read. And you know what's happening here clearly is it's chugging along. The computer's working fine, but then it loads something it needs from the hard drive, and it's damaged. It's corrupted because the hard drive's messed up, and then it just dies. So what we need to do is replace everything on the hard drive with a known good version of Windows. If that doesn't work, get a new hard drive and start over. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Leo Laporte, the tech guy, joining us right now. Johnny Jett, our travel guru. Johnny helps us get the most out of travel using modern-day technology to plan your journey. Hi, Johnny.
How you doing,
Where
Leo?
are you? Where are you? Where are you? You're somewhere different.
I'm in L.A. I'm at home, actually. I just got back.
This is an angle we never see of your house.
I'm going to the Grammys tomorrow.
Tomorrow's a big day. Now, how'd you get in there?
You know, a Hilton Hotels invited me, and then last night I was at 2 nights ago I was at a party with Delta for the Grammys. So all the big travel companies come in and they have parties, and they invite people around. So,
Would you tell Katy Perry I'm her #1 fan?
I sure will.
Hey, what does that mean? People say that to me sometimes. I'm your #1 fan. What do you mean? You're better than everyone else? What does that mean? Your #1 fan. I'm glad you're a fan. Thank you.
No one's told me that.
Johnny Jet, I am your #1 fan. It feels like a put down. It's like your mother saying no one will ever love you as much as I do. It sounds good on the surface, and then you think about it and you go, oh, that's terrible news. Mom! So, Johnny, Phuket, we had a caller earlier. He's honeymooning in Shanghai, which I think sounds really cool.
Shanghai's cool.
But he's going to pass through, that's Phuket's Thailand.
Yeah, Shanghai's China, so
yeah,
it's a good.
It's like on the way.
Flight. No, it's not on the way.
It's out of the way.
It's out of the way.
Hey, it's his honeymoon.
Phuket is just too crowded for me. So what I usually do,
I've heard of it. So it's obviously a very big tourist attraction. Is Phuket
big time?
Yeah,
big time. So what I would do is I would drive 51 miles north and go to Khao Lak, Khao, and then Lak. And it's actually, this was really devastated during the big tsunami.
Right.
But and there's a museum there and all that stuff. But there's a beautiful national park called Khao Sok, S-O-K, and you go down the river.
Why do all of these all these Thailand names sound like dirty phrases? What is going on there?
I have no comment on that.
They may say, hey, everything we say in English sounds like you're insulting us. I don't know, but it just, okay. You say Khao Sok?
No, Khao Sok is a national park. Go there and go to Khao Lak. You know, we stayed at this resort there. I think I stayed at the JW Marriott. And I remember my wife ordering some food by the pool. I was like, that's not going to be cheap. Sure enough, it was $7. And she was like, it was such good pad thai. And then you walk off.
I could live on
out of the hotel and take a left and you go to one of the beach bungalows and you get the best pad thai for $1.40.
What? So it was overpriced.
Yes.
The hotel pad thai.
You can live very cheaply in Thailand. I was there a few months ago. And
Lisa, we're going to Thailand. Okay.
For sure. And check out the Anatara hotels, especially in Chiang Rai or the Four Seasons up there, which is insane.
Khao Lak. So it's like a lock. So imagine a moo cow with a lock through its nose. And then once you go to Khao Lak, you should go to Khao Sok, which is a moo cow with a sock on its foot. See, I have this in mnemonic. That's okay. I got it.
Go up to the north.
I've written it down.
All right. And anyway, I got a good deal for you, by the way.
Yes.
I just looked. I can't believe it's still there. American Airlines. You go to AA.com or actually go to my website. I have a story on it. You can go from New York or Los Angeles one way to Copenhagen for $325, and it's airfare. The airfare is only $1. Americans making $1. The rest is taxes because you have to go through London Heathrow. But you go to AA.com, you put in LAX or JFK or Newark and do it for the summer. I just looked for August 14th, and it's $1 fare. Now
this is obviously a computer error, right?
No, it's been there for 3 days. That's what I thought at first, but it's been there for 3 days.
Wow.
So, and to come home, people, on my...
Yeah, what do you do to get home? It's $8,000.
No, there's all different ways. First of all, you can try and use miles, and you want to use your miles very last minute, so you are rolling the dice. Or you can just set fare alerts, which we've talked about before, and I have a whole thing on the website for that.
Why do you want to use your miles at the very last minute?
Because they open up last minute, especially to Europe.
Yeah, because every time I try to use my miles, they say, no, it's blocked. So you're saying you take a chance... But because they're unsold seats, they may allow miles to be used for them.
A day, 2, 3 before. So right now, look for tomorrow to go to Europe or to New York and watch they open up. And then next week they won't be open. But just keep checking. So that's what I do all day long.
And that's why you should go to johnnyjet.com and sign up for his free travel newsletter because that's great.
Yeah, I mean, I have it on hold right now to go to Europe, to Copenhagen. So you have to put in CPH.
Copenhagen is great. I wouldn't go now, but if you can go in the summer, it is a beautiful city.
You can go during the summer, and you actually, American would hate me to tell you this, but you can get off in London because the plane goes through London.
No, don't tell anybody that. Just
don't put your miles in so you don't get in trouble. But
wow, $1 to London.
So that's my tip right now. I'm going to send out another deals newsletter to talk about it. Yesterday there was actually a round trip ticket from LA to Denmark for $576, I think, on Delta.
Wow, I'd almost take that just because I know I can get back.
Exactly.
Although getting stuck in Denmark's not the end of the world.
I love Denmark. I'm part Danish.
Yeah. Yeah, Jet. That's a very well-known Danish name.
All right. So I got an app for you.
Yeah.
Actually, this is a website. So go to – actually, I just tweeted it to you, so you don't have to type it in. But it's taxifarefinder.com, and you do Ride Guru.
Wait a minute. It's Taxi Fare Finder, and then you click Ride Guru? Oh, you mean like Ask the Ride Guru?
Or slash Ride Guru.
Okay.
Right, it's right there in the middle on the menu bar.
And then what does this do?
So put in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And then put in SFO.
So to get a ride from San Francisco to the airport,
it will tell you exactly what prices.
Oh, and it compares Uber and Sidecar and Lyft and Uber X and Uber XL to a regular taxi. So the regular taxi fare is $50. But if you want to save money, Uber X is $22. Lyft is $22. What is Sidecar? That's another one of those, isn't it?
It's another competitor.
Are you riding in a sidecar on a motorcycle? Because that should be $18. That should be very cheap.
That would be funny. That would be Thailand.
Wow, this is great. And then there's others. Oh, this is really cool.
You can do it anywhere in the world. And it's actually, I've tried a bunch of cities, and it's very accurate.
I have to say $50 is exactly right for SFO fare from the city. Yep. So, and interesting, Uber Taxi, Flywheel, Curb, they're all pretty much the taxi fare. And then the black car service from Uber is a little more. That's what you'd expect, about $10 more. And then another $10 more for Uber SUV.
I take Uber X, from my house down in Manhattan Beach to LAX. It costs $14 for Uber X. For taxis, $26.
But does the guy pick you up in a Gremlin? I mean, is it like a weird car, or what do you?
No, usually they're very clean. The drivers are very nice because you rate them.
Yep.
And then
they rate you too, by the way.
They do.
So be nice.
And I heard that one of my friends' mother can't get in.
They won't pick her up because she's got a bad rating.
She's mean.
Finally, there's a way to let mean people know they're mean.
And I love that.
Yeah.
And I'm all for it.
She's probably gone through life thinking she's the sweetest little old lady. And finally, somebody's telling her to her face, no, you're mean and we're not picking you up. That's good. Unless she's not mean.
I know.
But she is. You're verifying this.
If you've never taken Uber, you can right now they have promo codes for $30 off your first ride. So get someone in your family who's never signed up, have them download the app and put in the promo code. You can use your friends, or better yet, use mine so I get a free ride.
What's your promo code, Johnny Jet?
I think it's Uber Johnny Jet, but I mean, after you download the first one, then you start recommending your friends, so you get the credit.
Yeah. Do you ever take the pink mustache?
I've never taken it. I know they've taken the pink mustache off. They're just putting a little thing on the
Lyft. Yeah. I liked the pink mustache. At least you knew, when it pulled up, you knew that El Camino was your driver. I think that's cool. JohnnyJet.com. Everybody should go there and learn more. Get those free, cheap fares. Thank you, Johnny. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Pick you up in a Pacer.
Usually pick you up in a hybrid.
Usually it's like a Prius or something.
A lot of times it's a Prius, the Uber X.
I'm all scared of Uber now because of all the bad press. I'm all scared of them.
I've taken it 50 times. I've never had a problem.
We used it. Okay, the only time I've used it, I used it in Paris when we were in Paris for Le Web like 4 years ago, something like that. They had just launched in Paris. First ride was great, and it was like, wow, this is amazing. Second ride, the guy said, oh, the application is crashed. I do not know what to charge you.
Oh, gosh.
Give me 1,000 francs. I mean, it was a scam, obviously. The application is crashed. And I'm just supposed to pay him how much do I pay you?
I've never heard that. That's a joke. But my one problem, actually I have two problems with Uber. One is if you're traveling and your credit card, you either lost your credit card and you changed it, that's on file, and you go to try and get a car, you get locked out.
Yeah.
And then you can't put a new card in while you're out of your area.
Oh.
And then the other thing I don't like about them is that sometimes they update their apps, and I always wait to the last minute to get a car, and it takes 20 minutes to download, and by that time, I'm gonna miss my flight.
Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Back to the phones we go. Patrick is on the line from Santa Monica, California. Hi, Patrick.
Leo, thank you for taking my call. I'm actually your number 2 fan.
Thank you. I'm worried about my number 1 fan. Yeah.
No, I'll stay for number 2. How's
Okay,
that?
good.
So listen, I've been running a small wholesale business forever. Windows XP, very simple. I have what they call a Back to the Future phone, my friends call it. It's an old school Nokia, way behind the times. Anyway, I'm starting a internet business, an e-commerce business. So I went and replaced my computers, got a Windows 7, doing all the backups. Now I need to look at the smartphones. I've been to the Apple store. I've checked out the iPhone 6, the 6 Plus, the Samsung Galaxy. I am more sold on the Apple, but here's the thing. I'm doing my emails on a web-based platform called Roundcube. My emails are on there and my contacts. But the thing is, I need something that's going to push to the phone, and ideally also the calendar and the tasks. And I spend hours on. Yeah, you can get Remember the Milk app, this app. I'd like to have something that all pushes to one phone seamlessly.
Right.
And I even asked my tech guy. He's like, well, you can get Exchange, but then you can't use tasks, but you could do this.
I'd stick with Roundcube because Roundcube is IMAP, which will work with anything. Roundcube is his email server. So there are a number of email.
There's no way to push the contacts as far as I'm aware. And they don't have a calendar and they don't have tasks.
They don't have any of that stuff. Okay, yeah. Exchange does all of that. Here's what I do, and unless you can have some objection to it, is what I would recommend is use Google. So Google has contacts and calendar. They also have mail. You don't have to use Gmail. You continue to use Round Mail, but if you wanted, you could use Gmail. The nice thing on both iOS and Android, of course, because it's from Google, does a great job integrating with all the Google stuff, but so does iOS. So the easiest thing to do is to migrate your calendar. What is it in right now?
Well, my calendar is in Google. My tasks are in Remember the Milk. You see,
yeah, you can migrate Remember the Milk. Google has tasks.
I was recommended because I have Outlook 2013. Sorry to interrupt you. And then someone's like, why don't you just put everything in that, but find which one would push best to a smartphone.
I wouldn't use Outlook if I were you. Outlook doesn't. No, yeah, I'm not a fan of Outlook. It's dated. It's pretty dated by now. Now the interesting thing is Microsoft has purchased a very nice app called Accompli. They just purchased another calendar app. Accompli is email. They purchased another calendar app called Sunrise, both of which work excellently with Google services. They would work just fine with Roundcube. And the interesting thing is that they've put that out as Outlook for iOS.
Wow, I'm writing this down.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting because it means you're now you're not using traditional Outlook. Outlook for Office is terrible, I think. It's a personal thing, and a lot of businesses use it. But it's old. It's really feeling its age. The user interface is very ungainly. And
I'm just starting this business. I mean, I'm looking to obviously expand.
Well, if I were starting a new business, I would go with Google Apps across the board. I'd use Google. Yes, I would use Google Mail for business. I would use the Google Word Processor, Spreadsheet, Slides, Google Calendar. I would just go Google across the board. Very low cost. You don't need Microsoft Office at all. It works everywhere. The only place it doesn't work well is Windows Phone.
Which I'm not interested in.
If you're not going to use Windows Phone, then iOS and Android Google support is excellent. It's particularly good on Android, and it will always be. iOS, I'm thinking Apple would love to move away from Google. They haven't yet. And Google does continue to provide all of their apps on iOS. But boy, if you're Android, then you can use Google Hangouts as your messaging client, and I'm all in on Google. And then sometimes people don't want to do it because they're worried about privacy, perhaps, or they just feel like Google's too big, it's scary. You know what? Microsoft's big and scary. They're all big and scary now. And a company has to be big and scary to provide you with all the services you want.
What do you use, sir, if you don't mind me asking, for task management?
I use Google Tasks, but there is a very nice task manager that integrates with it called AnyDo. It's what I recommend, AnyDo, and it works on iOS, Android, and web. And it integrates. It will, if you sign up to AnyDo with your Google credentials, it will use your Google Tasks and Google Calendar and everything else. If you use my recommendation, I use Sunrise Calendar. You can use the Google Calendar, but I use Sunrise. This is on iOS or Android. Sunrise Calendar, AnyDo Tasks. The Google Contacts just interface with the phone's own contacts, which is fine. And I use Gmail, and I think you're in pretty good shape there.
I appreciate
and I think for starting up a business, that's a great way to start up. It scales with you. It's very affordable. It's and if you get 100 employees, it works just fine.
Gotcha. But before you let me go, I'm curious. You said you use Gmail, but I already have a web.
You can continue to use RoundCube. What you'll find is Gmail's free. Does everything RoundCube does and more. Has the best anti-spam of any service I've ever used.
So if you have your own domain already.
Well, then, see, that's why you get Google Apps, because you can assign your domain to Google Apps. So, for instance, my company, which is Twit, we use Google Apps. So our mail server is mail.twit.tv. It sounds like it's coming from our own server. And my email, which is leo@twit.tv, actually is a Gmail account. It all becomes Gmail.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of universities do this now. In fact, it's, I would say, #1 in universities for mail server, because it's inexpensive, scales beautifully. You get all these Google services. And if you're using Gmail, then when you get an invitation to a meeting in Gmail, it automatically goes to your Google Calendar. It just all works together. And of course, that's what Google wants you to do. They want you to enter the Google ecosystem. But to me, it's the most complete. It's the most complete ecosystem out there, unless you do as this consultant says, and you go to Microsoft Exchange. But that's going to add up. That's going to get very expensive very quickly.
Yes. Okay. Great. Appreciate that advice, especially you said AnyDo, Sunrise Calendar, and Complay you mentioned?
Complay. Well, that's iOS. The iOS Outlook. Microsoft bought them. So Outlook for iOS is a Complay. In fact, I'm sure the calendar app will, because they just bought Sunrise for $100 million. They spent $200 million to buy a Complay. $100 million to buy Sunrise. This is the future going forward of Microsoft Mobile Outlook.
Rather than leave behind the Outlook, don't even bother.
I wouldn't. Oh, man. Outlook on the desktop's a nightmare.
Okay. Wonderful. I appreciate your input.
Well, that's my opinion. But it's also what I do. And frankly, I don't even see the point of spending money on I use Fastmail. It's an IMAP server. It's very much like RoundCube. But truthfully, Google kind of handles it all. And Gmail is a very fast, efficient, effective service. And remember, okay, so, and then the other thing is understand, Google does do this for business for, I can't remember, it's $5 a seat. It's very inexpensive per month. Much cheaper than any exchange service would be. But the free version, which many people use, I continue to use, the way they monetize that is with advertising. I find it unobtrusive, doesn't bother me. Google is using information it garners from scanning the email for keywords, and I presume the calendar as well, to put ads on various pages in in my opinion, relatively unobtrusive way. One of the things that will happen, you'll buy something, get an acknowledgement email to your Google account, and then now when I go to another site that uses Google Ads, let's say I go to The Verge, suddenly seeing an ad in that category or even for that company, and you might say, well, wow, how'd they know that? Well, because they saw the email come through. It's not like but that's what you're giving up. Some people that bothers. It doesn't bother me because there's not like a human being at Google sitting going, oh, look who Leo's. Oh, my goodness, Leo. There's nobody doing that. It's a computer. They have to scan the emails anyway for spam. That's how all spam processing, I don't care if it's Microsoft, Google, or Apple, or your ISP or RoundCube, any internet service provider that is blocking spam does it by doing what? Reading your email. They have to. So if you're worried about, oh, but the computer's reading my email for advertising, it doesn't bother me. But if it bothers you, then you probably will want a different service. I am not convinced that Microsoft's not doing the same thing. You'd have to find somebody that really says up front, no, we promise we'll never look at anything ever. You don't want to be private on the internet, encrypt everything. Frankly, that's the only way. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. More calls to come right after this. Well, hey, how are you today? Leo Laporte here, the tech guy. Time to talk about computers, the internet, cell phones, camcorders, home theater, and anything I left out. I learned a new phrase today, DAP. We could talk about DAPs, too. I used to say we'll talk about iPods, but nobody's buying iPods anymore. But now the new thing is DAPs, digital audio players. And I've noticed a number of companies, Sony, the best known, they're making a DAP, their new Sony Walkman, is like $1,500. They showed it at CES. What does it do? Well, it's just like it's like an iPod, basically. It's like a really, expensive iPod, the Walkman ZX2. And all the rage today, it's very pretty, I guess. All the rage today is, playing back high-res or high-quality audio files. We had a ZX1. It was pretty. It's funny. It's running Android, and it's I'm sorry. I overstated the price. It's $1,119.99. Not so expensive. No, that's not nothing. It's cheap. Be available in the spring. Who's going to buy a $1,000 audio player? Then I looked at, on the other end of the spectrum, a company called FiiO, F-I-I-O, which is well known among audiophiles. In fact, we buy a lot of FiiO digital to analog converters, headphone amps, things like that. They're a Chinese company, but they make a $100 DAP, digital audio player, that plays back high quality, super high quality, high res music, FLAC, uncompressed, Apple lossless or FLAC files. Now, see, Marsworm in the chat room says, "Oh no, that Sony Walkman, that's a deal. You have to take a look at the Estelle and Kern players. They start at a very affordable $800, but if you want to get the really fancy one, $24,000. What? What? You're kidding me. What? Apple got out of the iPod business a little too soon, I think. Emotion and pleasure, the AK240 Mark II. See, and there's a big debate now over this, and I think because of Neil Young's Pono player, this has really crystallized the conversation. My friend David Pogue, who was the New York Times reviewer and is now working at Yahoo, wrote an article saying it's the emperor's new clothes. No one can hear the difference at high-quality audio. No one knows the difference. People are spending huge amounts of money on stuff that makes them feel, it's like wine. You feel like you're getting, well, this must be really good. It cost me $1,000 a bottle. I am drinking, but if you put it in a paper bag with a $2 chuck, you wouldn't know the difference. Do you think it's that? I feel like I'm getting more. Not $24,000 worth more, not even $1,000 more, but I ordered the $100 one, and I'll let you know. And I have a Pono player, and I like it. It's ungainly. It's not something you'd want to carry around. The software's rough. I don't actually recommend anybody buy it because it's $400. But I like the idea, and I think Neil Young promoting the idea of why are we selling lower quality music than we're making? Why don't we, when we're making an album, why do we resample it for CD or worse, heavily compress it for selling on iTunes? Is there a market for buying the music as it sounds on the master recording? Is it same quality as a master recording? Is there a market for that? And I don't blame people who say, no, it doesn't sound any different, you shouldn't buy it. But it's not that much more expensive. Most CDs of high-res music, you don't buy them on CD, you buy them for download, are $18. That's not a lot more than a regular CD. And it's kind of nice to know that you have the same audio, the same bits as on the master. It's not downsampled, it's not squeezed, it's not compressed. If you can't hear the difference, well, I guess you could buy the downsampled version, but for $8 more, why not? I'm not going to buy a $24,000 player, though. I do have some limits. 8888 Ask Leo, that's the number. David is on the line. He's next from New York City. Hello, David.
Hey, Leo. So, got a question that I would think you would be pretty familiar with, especially from when you were building up the original cottage and all that. A friend and I are looking at maybe starting a new podcast soon. I've done some podcasts as a hobby in the past, usually just using Skype and whatever microphone or whatever I had. The thing is, we want to try to get the audio quality pretty high for whatever money we can put into it, but it's probably going to be pretty heavy on interviews with people who are using regular phones.
Ooh, okay.
So basically my question is, what is the point of diminishing returns from going to Skype to spending money on a telephone interface? is it too much money for too little an audible difference, or can I get something that's maybe a few $100s that would be a noticeable improvement over using Skype to call a phone line?
It's a good question. And, you know, you'll notice, even if you listen to a show like ours or any talk radio show, that there's a great difference in the quality from one caller to another. The first limitation, of course, is the plain old telephone system, or POTS, they call it. When the telephone system was designed, remember, this is 100 years ago, the engineers who designed it said, what is the this is important. Listen to this phrase. What is the lowest quality audio we can send that would still be intelligible? They weren't saying, what is the best sound we can carry on our lines? They said, what is the lowest quality we could send that people would be able to understand it? The answer they came up with is pretty low quality. It's you know, it's 7 or 8-bit sound. I don't remember the exact thing, but it isn't very good. And the reason they did that is they didn't want to push more data down the wire, even though it was analog data, than it needed. So it's very low. A phone call is a very low quality, and it hasn't gotten any better in 100 years. Now, what has gotten better, and one of the reasons you'll notice differences in our callers, is the microphones we use. On those original Western, remember the old, you're probably too young, the black rubber, hard rubber Western electric phones. The microphone in that was what's called a carbon microphone. This is another one. What is the cheapest microphone we could use that would still be intelligible? Those were the engineering specs. And a carbon microphone is just a bunch of carbon particles that get excited slightly by the audio pressure of your voice and emit some electrical buzzing that can be sent down the phone line. It's really, really poor. And so that's why when you use phone, you don't sound very good. And there's very little frequency range and everything. I mean, it is as bad as it could be. So the best thing to do if you want good audio quality, voice quality, is get off a phone. There are better phone lines now. There's digital phone lines, which can carry more bits, although often they don't. One of the things that the Skype guys realized very early on is, hey, we don't have to have 8-bit sound. We could have 16-bit sound. We could have higher quality voice calls. And so Skype, it's still compressing it because it got to get it across the phone, you know, across the internet in a small packet. But Skype audio is light years better. And if you listen to any of our podcasts, most of our visitors, most of our contributors who are from all over the world come in via Skype. We've learned how to use Skype, how to tune it, how to give them good microphones. Because again, the better the microphone, you know, the better that's going to sound. So we use studio quality microphones. We use USB interfaces, so those studio quality microphones then go into the computer where Skype is getting good audio. It compresses it, but it's doing it well. And given enough bandwidth, Skype sounds fantastic. It almost sounds like, in fact, when Johnny Jett joins us on the radio show, when Chris Marquardt joins us from Germany, when Scott Wilkinson joins us, they're not in studio. They sound like they might sound like they are. They're all on Skype. So Skype can sound really good. Part 2 of this, I got a little carried away. Coming up right after this. I'm looking at the Wikipedia entry for device bit rates. It isn't a digital, you know, the phone system is not digital until it gets to the switch. Narrowband. POTS, 3.1 kilohertz per channel. So these are but modems what modems do is modulate, demodulate. That's what the word modem comes from. They take the bits of data, the ones and zeros of data, turn them into audio. That's why it's, and they send them down the phone line via audio. So even, and that's why we tapped out at 56K. We couldn't get any better than that on the existing audio telephone service. It wasn't until you went to digital to ISDN that you could go faster than 56K. So it's really interesting to see this, actually. Morse code, 4 characters a second, used 0.021 kilobits per second. Was that 21 bits a second? Or is it, yeah, it's 21 or 2.1. Anyway, that was 1844. This is really great. This is actually a really good page. The nominal bit rate of POTS is 8,000 mono samples per second with 12-bit precision, but that's digital. So you can't talk in terms of bits for analog sound. Leo Laporte, the tech guy, 8888. Ask Leo. I am over answering. I'm giving you the Stephen Hawking version of how phone systems work, and I apologize for that. So that's, you have to understand that any audio system, it's a mix of the input device, the carrying thing, whatever's carrying it, and the output device, and all three contribute to the quality of the sound. So you're talking about, what if I get a phone interface? JK Audio makes one. I used it when I first started podcasting. You plug it into the phone line, the plain old telephone system, and it lets you record on a computer. Does it make it sound better? Well, it'll make it sound as good as it can given the input device and the bandwidth of the plain old telephone system. It's better. It also does some interesting things. For instance, they call this a hybrid. We're on a phone hybrid right now, actually, David, because every radio station, in order to put a phone call on the air, has to use a hybrid. The one we're using is from Telos. Another big company is Gettner, and in the consumer level, JK Audio makes them as well. And what it does a number of things, but one of the things it's doing is allows us to both kind of talk at the same time. Because the phone system does not work that way. It is not full duplex, it's half duplex. So it uses digital switching in a very clever fashion to make it sound like you and I are talking at the same time.
And Skype is even worse at that than the regular phone system is.
Well, it is, unless you make a very low-level change to the Skype settings, which allows you to be full duplex. You can.
Really?
Yes. So this is one of the first lessons we learned. There's a thing in Skype called echo cancellation, because a lot of times in Skype, people use it with their laptop speaker and microphone, right? And so you would get, if you didn't have echo cancellation, the speakers would feed back into the microphone and it'd be a nightmare. So Skype does actually turn it into a one person talking at a time is one of the ways it does echo cancellation. But that gives you I think, a negative effect. It gives you something we call gating. When you're talking, the other person can't talk. And in fact, if I start talking, you disappear, and vice versa. So you can turn that off. That's echo. You can actually turn that off, but you have to do that in a low-level text file. We'll put up in the show notes. We found a site that tells us how to do this. So we do it to all of our calls, by the way, when you use Skype. When you do that, Skype is much more natural. And you'll notice if you listen to my Skype interactions with our Johnny Jett or Scott Wilkinson, it is much more natural. It's like this. So I like Skype, and I've used Google Voice. I've used many other codecs. Skype is a proprietary. They own it. Microsoft owns it. Compression technology. Nobody else has access to, and it's the best. The one that Google uses is not. It's open source. It's actually created by a company called Video, which we've tried, but it's an open source codec, which is not as good. So the way it's compressed is also important.
So as for the original question, though, the point of diminishing returns in terms of how much better it would be, I mean, in terms of, like... Well, you sound like a phone call right now, don't you? Well, you don't know, but yes, let me tell you, you do. Everybody else at home saying, yes, he sounds like a phone call. That's the best you're going to get. This is as good as it's going to get. And that's because most people nowadays, the handsets they're using have real condenser microphones. You know, if you buy a phone nowadays, it's not a carbon microphone. It's a condenser microphone. The system's pretty clean. It's almost certainly digital by the time you get to the central office, and digital from then on. So it doesn't get a lot of interference or noise. You remember, you know... Anybody my age remembers being on a phone call and you hear buzzes and clicks and warbles. You'd hear echo. You'd hear the noisiest thing, because these were analog lines going from your house and your voice to that other person far away. And it was like as if you had a direct wire connection. And it was a lot of interference, a lot of noise. They fixed that. It's a very good system. The POTS system works very well now. And it is primarily digital. It's almost certainly VoIP in everywhere. But again, you can only be up to a certain level. They don't want to use too much bandwidth. So they're still not letting you use even, 16-bit sound would sound
really good. And Skype is 16-bit. So I think it is. It's closer. It's certainly not 8-bit. So you'd get better sound with Skype. People would notice they'd sound like somebody's on a phone call. Listen to well-produced shows like This American Life on National Public Radio, and they will try not to use phone whenever they can. But people can understand it. I don't think it's the end of the world. But just understand that there's a clear difference. And Skype sounds like well done Skype. And by the way, poorly done Skype is worse than the phone, because at least the phone works and every word gets through. When you have bandwidth problems, Skype could sound weird. People throw water, and it can get very strange. These are all digital artifacts that are because the bandwidth's insufficient. So if you've got good bandwidth between you and the person you're talking to, they've got a good mic, and I recommend a headset mic at the very least. We send actually all of our hosts, we send professional broadcast microphones to, and then a good interface. Skype can sound like the person's in the same room.
So at least for me, what it comes down to, save the money, don't buy an interface, use Skype, just do what I can to make sure Skype sounds better.
Yes.
Use a wired connection.
Yes.
Turn off the echo cancellation,
Yes.
etc.
Yes.
Use the money on microphones, whatever.
Exactly. That's been my choice, and that's what we ended up doing. We started with phone interfaces, and we decided, so it's good to have a phone. Phone interfaces is not expensive from JK Audio. They're pretty cheap. It's nice to have that as a backup. If somebody doesn't have good bandwidth, if they're sitting out in the middle of nowhere or they refuse to use a wired connection, you're right. You hit another one, which we learned. Wi-Fi does not work as well.
Well, what I'm talking about, though, is if we absolutely need to call someone's phone from Skype.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah, and you can use Skype for that. I use Google Voice for phone calls all the time because at least it's digital right up to the last mile. And that sounds better. When I'm on a Google Voice with a headset, I sound better talking to you than if I were on a regular phone. Absolutely. So even then, use Skype. Use Skype out. That's right. You don't need a phone interface, come to think of it. Now, here's the only problem. It's a little hard to record both ends of a Skype conversation. You need some specialized software to do that. On a Mac, you can use Audio Hijack Pro. Okay, so that's a little tricksy. On Windows, you can use Pamela. There are ways to do this, but yeah, it's a little tricksy. But once you figure that out, and you know what you're going to do? This is how I started. You're going to get a mixer. You're going to get another mic. Pretty soon, you're going to build a 10,000 square foot studio.
For what it's worth, on the Mac, you don't need Audio Hijack. I mean, there's
Soundflower.
There's one that's just called Skype, or I think just called Recorder.
Yeah, there are various ways to do it. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Probably Audio Hijack's a little overkill.
Yeah.
Hey, good luck. What's the podcast about?
I honestly don't want to give away too much because it's in a space that's crowded, and we think we have a good idea that could do really well.
Good luck. I love it. Highly encourage it. It's a great thing. Podcasting is a boon, I think. It's amazing, the variety and the quality of the shows that are out there. It's mind-boggling. Really is wonderful. And I'm, as somebody who loves audio, who loves radio, it's radio, just without the tower and the transmitter. But it's still radio. I love it. Hey, it's good to talk to you, David. When you do want to plug it, call back and let me know. We're going to take a break, come back with more. Coming up in a bit, Don in Cyprus. He wants to disconnect the internet when the kids are bad. How do you do that? Oh, we'll figure out a way. The Gizwiz coming up, too, with his Gadget of the Week. All ahead. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. You stay right here. Our show today brought to you by Smart Things. Where's my Smart Things? No, I don't need the Smart Things. I could just show you smartthings.com. Smart Things is a crazy idea that it hit the spot. Everybody wants to, kind of do home automation. You may say, well, what do you mean? But I don't mean like, you got a bed that rotates and the curtains close and the lights go down and Burt Bacharach comes on. It could be other things too, The idea you say good night to your smartphone and the door's locked, the garage door, make sure it's closed. Wouldn't it be nice? You don't have to get up and go check. The thermostat turns down. Smart Things makes that possible. Smart Things started as a Kickstarter project. The idea was we're going to make a hub that will talk to everything. The problem is, of course, with home automation, nothing talks to anything else. Wouldn't it be great if you could get something that would talk to everything and let your smartphone control it all? Your Hue lights, your Schlage locks, your Sonos speakers, your Nest thermostat. Smart Things talks to everything. Now your lights, your locks, your thermostats, your home security are all connected through a single app. It's intuitive. It's easy to use. And the app is available not just on iOS and Android, but Windows Phone too. I commend them for that. Really, good job, guys. With SmartThings, you can customize the way your smart devices talk to each other. So, for instance, you can tap Good Night on your phone. The lights will turn off, the thermostat will adjust, the doors lock. Even set your lamps to brighten at sunrise every morning. See, there's some of the things that will work. Works with everything. Drop cam, your jawbone up. If I've been working out too hard, draw me a bath and turn on the relaxing music. I don't know if it can draw a bath yet. It could tell if your tub's overflowing, though. The SmartThings has a moisture sensor. Enable your speakers to broadcast dogs barking if there's motion outside the house. There's the hub. It's very simple. And SmartThings is doing it right because they're making it easy to get started with their SmartThings Home Security or Solution Kits. And we're giving you a deal on those. 10% off when you use the offer code TWIT at checkout. Visit smartthings.com/twit and find out more. Look at this. They have you could get the kits, you can get the hubs and device. There's lots of different ways to mix and match. I think it's worth visiting the website, smartthings.com/twit, to learn about what SmartThings can do. And then when you decide to get the kit, get 10% off any home security or solution kit, plus get free shipping in the U.S. when you go to smartthings.com/twit. Use the offer code TWIT at checkout. SmartThings was named CES's 2015 Editor's Choice. I'm not kidding. These guys, they're revolutionizing home automation. And the app is free, of course. SmartThings.com/twit. Use the offer code TWIT at checkout to save 10%. Oh, and free shipping in the U.S. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. And let's move on to Bren in Riverside, California, our next caller. Hi, Bren.
Hey, Leo.
How are you?
Oh, pretty good. I absolutely love your show. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure. What can I do for you?
Okay, so I'm having a bit of trouble with an iPod. Basically, the short story of it is where I work, we have like an overhead type music thing that's played off of an iPod. And they want me to like update the music, add some new stuff to it. But the department that used to handle the music doesn't handle it anymore. So now our department is doing it, but we don't have access to the old computer or any of the old music.
Yeah.
So I was trying to use, there was some programs like iExplorer and Zillasoft and stuff that I was going to use. And I had all that, and it was all working great. And then I plugged in the iPod, and it said, this iPod was formatted on a Macintosh, and you're on a Windows. You need to erase it and reformat it. And I was like, no. So I'll call Leo.
Cancel.
Yeah.
So you're using a Windows machine?
Yes.
Yeah, and you don't have access to a Mac anywhere?
No.
Yeah, it's funny because the Mac can read Windows hard drives, but the Windows can't read Mac hard drives. There are programs you can buy that will add the capability of reading a HFS formatted drive, which is what that iPod is on Windows. I don't know if I guess that's what you have to do at this point if you have no access to the Mac. So I understand what your issue is. All the music that's on that iPod, that's the only copy because the other guys are gone.
Exactly.
And you could easily plug that iPod into a Windows machine, wipe it, and start over, but you'd lose all that music.
Yeah.
And you don't want to.
No, yeah, 'cause there's like 400 songs on there.
So you need a way to read that device and copy all the music off it. Now, iTunes won't let you. In fact, Apple got sued kind of over this because, but this is something and they won, by the way, because this is something the record companies required. They said, look, the iPod with its huge capacity is a perfect piracy device if we let people copy songs from it. So Apple, you've got to figure out a way to prevent people from copying songs off the iPod. I don't think Apple's heart was really in it, though, because they did a really lousy job of that. And it turns out it's easy. You can't do it with iTunes. You have to do it with third-party software. And as you've noted, there's quite a few programs that would do it. The issue is a little bit more complicated here because the iPod was and this is a weird thing, but some iPods are formatted for Mac, some iPods are formatted for Windows. So that's kind of unfortunate because, as I said, Windows cannot read the Macintosh file format. Well, I mean, I know this would work. I'm wondering, it seems like this would be a good thing for somebody to write, you know, like Snooty and all these programs that will take music off the iPod. It would be really nice if somebody wrote one for Windows that could read the Mac format. I don't know if anybody's done that. Short of that, you need Mac Drive, which is a little program you install on your Windows machine that just gives it the capability of reading the Mac file format.
Okay.
It's from Media4, MEDIAFOUR, the number 4. And Mac Drive, they do have a free 5-day trial. So actually, this might be all you need for this one shot.
Okay.
And what it does is you install it in Windows. It's just a driver. You know, Windows has a capability of extending the kinds of file systems it can read. So it should be able to read that. Now, once you read that, you'll run the program. Once you install that, you'll run the program that can read the iTunes. It should, at that point, be able to read it and copy the stuff off.
Okay, so basically you just run the Mac driver in the background. You don't have to do anything with it?
Nope, it just runs in it's a driver.
Okay.
It's a driver. And once it's running in the background, I think that these programs that you're using, you know, iPod or whatever it is, I can't remember what they are for Windows, but whatever you're using. Which one are you using?
I was using iExplorer.
Yeah, iExplorer's great. So you would think that folks who did iExplorer would give you this capability, but I guess they don't. So anyway, 5 days free, I think that's enough for you to get the music off of there.
Okay,
and then it's fine to reformat that, you know, and start using it as a Windows iPod.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because once I have it all taken off, I can reformat, do all that.
Exactly. You just need to get that music. You can copy it. You can actually see the drive with many drive utilities. The problem is Apple, as an additional copy protection measure, didn't name the files with the name of the song. They gave them an index number, and then there's a database that matches the index to the name of the song. So you can copy the files, but you wouldn't know what you have. You have to listen to each one.
Oh,
it's kind of a pain.
Yeah, that'd take a long time.
iExplorer is a good choice. This company that does iExplorer makes some iExplorer makes some good stuff. I'm surprised they don't make it Windows cross-platform. But anyway, I would guess most iPods now are just formatted for Windows because the Mac can read them. So who cares, right? When you get a USB key, for instance, they're always formatted for Windows because everything can read that. All right, there you go. There's the answer, my friend. Now we're going to talk to Don in Cyprus. What did your kids do?
Well, you know, I think this is not necessarily a unique problem. At first I was going to say it is, but talking to other parents all the time, you know, you have your kids, they do something wrong, okay, going to shut off their tablets.
Yeah, what am I going to...
Video game systems.
The whole process of being a parent of teenagers is, what can I give them so that I have something to take away when I...
There you go.
Because there's what are you going to do? Spank them? You can't spank them. You can't send them to bed without supper. They'll just go to McDonald's. So you got to have something to take away.
So the problem is, and I've been talking to other parents about it, and they come across the same thing, is I've heard some they reset their password to the internet every day, of course, but that's
no. I'll tell you what we did, because we used to do the same thing. Yeah, taking the internet away should only be done in extreme cases, though. You know, this is a severe punishment.
I only want to be able to take away their tablets and stuff like that. I need their computers to be active if they're doing homework and all of the other stuff.
Oh, that's clever.
But I want to just be able to get on my phone and just like log into my router or whatever and just cut off.
So some routers will do this. There's something called an access control list, or ACL. Some routers will do this. You can say to the router, these are the MAC addresses of the devices that I want. For instance, you can do this on an Apple router, and I love it. This is one of the reasons I used Apple routers when the kids were younger. You can say, you can even set times. You can say the internet goes off for the tablets at 7 p.m. The internet goes off for the laptops at 10 p.m. The internet stays on for mom and dad all night.
Do they have any type of interfaces that go directly to your phone and stuff? I mean, because I don't want to have to go log into my computer or whatever, or even my tablet.
I'll give you another way to do it.
Right on my phone.
Yeah, no, because you don't want your router to be accessible from outside your network, because that's a risk. So if that's what you want to do, then you go to opendns.com, and they have a system that does this, and it's great. And what happens is you set your router to use OpenDNS for your domain name system. And by the way, this is a good example of an excellent phone call. What are you using for a phone?
Whatchamacallit, a LG P3.
Okay, so it's a good cell phone. And notice there's no noise. That's unusual. Yeah, sounds really good.
Now all of a sudden, here comes the noise.
Yeah, here comes the noise that says I have to go. OpenDNS.com. They have excellent parental controls, including an access control list. It's really good. Leo Laporte, the tech guy.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, they have an app for the router. Absolutely, you can control it, but you have to be inside the network. Maybe that's all he cares about. It sounded like he wanted to do it from away. Yeah, if as long as you're inside the network, you can control the Apple router from any device on the router. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. As always, this time of day, it's time to say hello to Dick DeBartolo, Mad's maddest writer, and we call him the Gizwiz because each and every week he comes to us with a fabulous gadget. I see over your right shoulder there a binary. Is that a binary clock? What is that? Those lights?
Oh, that's the Tetris lamp. I didn't realize it was so bright.
It's Tetris. He's playing Tetris.
Yeah. It comes in 9 pieces, and you assemble it, and it's a lamp.
Can you play the game on it, or
no? It's just a conversation piece, as it just proved itself.
Yes, we've had a conversation now about it.
Yeah, we did.
Fascinating.
Exactly.
So Dick is at gizwiz.biz. That's his website, and each and every week, he not just for us, by the way, he does the Gizwiz podcast every Thursday on the Twit network, twit.tv/Gizwiz. You're also a regular on World News Now on ABC and many other shows all over the country.
Yeah.
You're basically anybody who calls, you say, I'm there.
You got a dime to call me, I'm there.
But the guy has gadgets galore, so it's not a problem.
No, I do. And I have a gadget. You and I talked about it years ago. And because you are a tech person and have a new house, are you using any induction stoves or cookers? Or
I want to. I got to try to. So we have I always used to like gas.
You had gas. Remember
I told you I had gas
yeah,
in
that was
every
the key.
house. And because you turn it on, it's instantly full hot. It's you know what restaurants use, big powerful gas burners. We have a nice gas cooktop, but I've been trying to talk Lisa into getting one of these. What is it called? Induction
cooking. And you know, you can easily talk it into the new one. The company that's helping pioneer it is Faga America, Fagor America, and they're doing it by doing cooktops that are under $100.
What?
Yes, and the newest
that's like a hot plate.
Yes, and it's beautiful looking. So there's no, induction cooking. You need a magnetic pan.
But almost anything that's metal will work, right? I mean,
well, not just plain aluminum. Because
aluminum
anything that a magnet will stick to will work.
Okay. So do you have to get all new pots?
No, the great thing, Leo, is just so that you can start induction cooking immediately, they now ship it with a skillet. An induction-ready skillet.
But if you had, for instance, a classic cast iron skillet, works fine.
Yes, exactly.
Most cookware has iron in it somewhere, and it will work with my thought was it would work with most cookware.
Probably yes.
Okay. But it doesn't get hot. This is what's so interesting. It's like a plate of glass, but it doesn't ever get hot.
No.
Ever.
And if you watch the Gizwiz show this week, they boil water, and I put a $20 bill under the skillet. And so the water can boil, and you can pick the pan up. I can pick the $20 bill up, and it is not scorched, not hot.
But doesn't the pan get hot? The pan gets hot.
Yes. If you're cooking a long time, you don't want to touch the pan or the cooktop because there'll be residual heat there.
The pan will heat the cooktop up because it's glass.
Yes.
Yeah,
but the neat thing, Leo, is that if you turn the induction stove on and there's no pan on it, it will start beeping.
Yeah.
After about 10 seconds, the stove will just shut off automatically because it knows there is no pan on it.
Well, that's why I'm intrigued by these. There's all sorts of things these stoves can do. I mean, they're very smart.
Yes, exactly. And
How
it's
do
all
they work,
digital.
though? It's like you're charging your toothbrush, right?
Exactly. There's a magnetic coil underneath, and it just is heating the cooking surface of the food that's on there.
It's not gonna. It's not dangerous. It's not gonna give me cancer, is it?
No. Oh, I hope not.
Well,
Right. Yeah.
It's not. I mean, it's just electromagnetism.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And it's 90%.
It's not going to pull my fillings out if I get close to it. It's not like that.
No, because I've been using one on and off for, my kitchen is just big enough for,
you have one
of these guys.
Yeah.
I have one that I use on and off because I don't have the counter space to keep it up there.
And will it work on just a standard 20 amp breaker?
Yes. It'll work exactly, because the new one, the old one was 1,500 watts, and the new one is 1,800 watts. So it will easily work on a 20 amp breaker. Although she told me it still operates on a 15 amp breaker, but obviously you can't have anything else plugged in at the same time.
But you can get it like a hot plate, this would be good for a student, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
Because it's like a little. It looks like a scale or something. It doesn't look like a hot plate.
It looks like a scale.
Yeah.
The neat thing also about it, it's a solid glass surface. So if something spills on it, it can't go into. Yeah, exactly. Wow. Easy cleanup.
Now I have a gas oven, so I probably am out of luck. I mean, like a gas cooktop. I don't know if I have any.
Well, you should talk Lisa into having one of these for
I'll get the hot
house.
plate. Yeah, for here.
For the brick house.
For here, I can make you. Next time you're on, I'll make you an omelet.
Okay, good. There you go.
I could have pancakes. It could be Pancake Sunday on the Tech Guy.
I like it. I
think Heather likes it too. All right, how much are these?
$99.99 for the stove and the induction-ready skillet.
And this is the 2X. Is that what it's called?
The 2X from Fager America, and it's out now.
I'm going to look on Amazon, see if I can get it. Oh yeah, they have it on Amazon.
Yeah.
This is bad, isn't it? If it's not on Amazon, I don't buy it.
Oh, I'm there with you.
Are you like that too? Because I want Prime. I want to get it.
If it's not Prime, I look elsewhere.
If it's not Prime, I ain't got the time.
Sell that to them. Sell that to them.
If the Prime fits, you must buy it.
Not
so good.
You're a one-hit wonder. What can I say?
That's it. I got one good line. Gizwiz.biz. That sounds like a poem, but it's not. It's actually Dick's website, gizwiz.biz. And it's where you go to play the what the heck is it contest. A close-up picture of a gadget or something or other. Just go to gizwiz.biz. By the way, there's a listing there, so you can get a link for the portable induction 2X from Fager America if you want to know more about that. But then while you're there, click the what the heck is it link. What is that? It looks like every time I look at one of these gadgets, I want to just say Smurf. It looks like a Smurf screwdriver. I don't know why.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why. I'm not going to say Smurf. It looks like It looks like one of those bulby things you stick in your oil to see if you've got water in your tank. Is there such a thing? Is that such a thing?
I was going to say, I hope you never worked at a service station as a kid, obviously.
They're doing something
Mister,
there.
would you like more water in your oil?
You don't have sufficient water in your oil. Let me put some in. It's a water dropper for your gas tank. That's what it is.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it looks like a chisel for, I don't know what it is. Anyway, go there.
Oh, that's kind of the game.
Yeah.
Which is good.
If I knew what it was, it wouldn't be any fun. So you got 12 Mad magazines autographed by yourself for the people who get it right, and 24 for the clever wrong answers. So you probably know which way to go with this one.
Yeah, and you're playing for the April issue, which is our Star Wars issue.
Oh, is it already? Oh, there it is.
It hasn't shipped yet, but the cover is.
Stormtroopers on the front. Alfred E. Newman. I thought that Alfred E. Newman was under those Stormtrooper outfits.
You see, you're in some areas you are really smart.
You don't have.
I'll give you 99% of all areas.
There's no like water dropper to put a little bit of water in your oil, just a little bit, just a touch.
To bring it up to that line.
Right. Because you gotta. Yeah. The guy goes, hey, Leo, can I top off your oil? Yeah. That guy does it. That
and
what
a
he
little
does.
Lime juice in your gas.
I like it.
Flavoring a nice little.
Can I clean your windshield, Mr. Laporte? That guy, he doesn't. That's not what he's doing.
That's him. Yeah, no, not quite. Not quite.
You know, in Oregon, you cannot fill your own gas tank.
What?
Yeah, I think it's Oregon. You have to have that. Kids, there's a job waiting for you in Oregon because they still need people to go out and say, well, fill up your tank, Mr. Giz.
Really? Do you have to have that silly accent? And
yeah, you have to talk like that. Well, that'll be $1.50, Mr. Giz.
Yeah, $1.50.
Have a great day. Would you like a plate with that? Remember gas stations used to give you stuff for going there? Like an No, maybe I'm making that up.
No.
Yeah, like an encyclopedia.
No, my mom got free dishes at the theater, but that's as far back.
Dick DeBartolo, Mads Mattis writer, Leo Laporte, Heather Hammond, thank you. Nathan Staten, our musical director. We'll see you next time. Have a great Geek Week, everybody. Goodbye. Well, that's it for the Tech Guy Show for today. I'm Leo Laporte. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget, the Tech Guy is just the tip of the iceberg. We do nearly 30 shows now on the Twit Netcast Network, and you'll find them all at twit.tv. We talk about Windows on Windows Weekly, Macintosh on Mac Break Weekly, iPad on iPad Today. You get your daily dose of tech news from Tech News Today, and our weekly roundtable show, This Week in Tech. It's all at twit.tv. And I'll be back next time with another great Tech Guy podcast. Thanks for joining me. See you next time.